Hey folks, it's me again, Bill at the Box of Sound, Divarata, and hello to all of my Box of Sound listeners, as well as all of you in the vinyl community and Frank Zappa lovers throughout the world. Now, I'm about to show you part 3. It's going to be 43 compact discs detailing 33 different released CD titles, which will be the next 12 releases in my continuing series of the Frank Zappa 2012 CD reissue program. And playing in the background, we've got the Frank Zappa album Orchestral Favorites, as played on vinyl, the way it should be played. And rather fitting because it's the next title in our series. So let's mount the camera on the tripod and get down to business, shall we? Alright, so when this was first released, it was released through Barking Pumpkin Records and EMI. And here's what the disc looked like here. And this was also one of the titles that was not officially sanctioned by Zappa. It was part of the masters he had delivered to Warner Brothers, but they refused to release for one reason or another. So it was released with this unauthorized artwork, and this became the official artwork, the artwork by Gary Panter. Now, it was re-released again on Rykodisc, the 1995 version, with the exact same release, a little bit different artwork behind by Gary Panter again. And this version is also the same as the version that's available now on the 2012 Universal Music version that is out. So that is Orchestral Favorites. Next up on our list of releases, we've got Joe's Garage. Originally a 3-record set that was distilled down into 2 CDs on Rykodisc, and they looked like that. It's one of the first bunches of stuff that was released on Rykodisc. And here's some promotional stuff about the Frank Zappa catalog that came out via Rykodisc. See right here, FZ on CD, and the secondary booklet that came along with it. And then there was the libretto that came along with it, the complete libretto for Joe's Garage with all of the lyrics, etc., and everything else. So, now, the first release that came out on this sounded pretty darn good on Rykodisc. And the exact same master was also used for the 1995 version that came out on Rykodisc, still in a fat back CD package. But then, the newest version on the Universal release through Zappa Records, or Zappa Records through Universal, whichever you prefer, it's in a slimline case, see? And it says that it's releases number 28 and 29, Zappa Joe's Garage, and it does come on 2 CDs. And there's the other CD right there. And this has been remastered from the original analog tapes by, let's see here, Doug Sachs at the Mastering Lab. This is the best version that's available right now of Joe's Garage, the brand new one, the 2012 version. Next release is Tinseltown Rebellion. Okay, this originally came out unauthorized through EMI in the UK, because it was part of a bunch of records that was supposed to be digitally remastered for vinyl. They released them on CD without Frank's authorization, and it was very quickly deleted. So copies of this with the EMI Barking Pumpkin label are pretty darn rare. And then it came out in the US on Rykodisc a few years later but this version was horribly, horribly mastered. It sounds terrible, and it looks like that. Then the same master was used in 1995 for this version on Rykodisc again. A little slightly different background on it. And then finally, it got mastered properly for the 2012 release of Tinseltown Rebellion. There's your disc. And this is the version to have. It's the best version digital. Of course, if you got the original vinyl, that's even better than this. So, that's the one to have. Coming up next, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, which was originally advertised as a mail-order only album, released at the same time as Tinseltown Rebellion. It was 3 separate records, but then came out in a boxed set, and we've got 2 CDs here, each with 3 record sides on them each, and lots of liner notes. This is the original version that came out on Rykodisc. And then, when it was re-released in 1995, they put it in a paper box. Very nice. And it had 3 separate CDs in it. Kind of hard to get out. Had Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar Some More, and The Return of the Son of Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, and a booklet with all the other information that was available previously on that. Both versions don't sound bad at all. But the best sounding version is this one, the brand new one, completely remastered by Bob Ludwig at Gateway Mastering in 2012. It has all 3 versions, all 3 discs, but spread across 2 CDs, and it's on the Zappa label. So this is the best digital version of this one right here. Shut Up and Play Your Guitar. Next up on our hit parade, You Are What You Is, and That's All It Is. This was also released on the EMI label without Frank's authorization, and it didn't sound bad at all. That's the rare version, folks. You can't find this. No, you can't. And if you do, snap it up, because it's rare. Anyway, sound quality on this one is okay. And pretty listenable. Then when it finally was put out in an authorized version on Rykodisc in 95, it suffered from horrible, horrible mastering. If the CD looks like this, don't buy it, peoples. It's no good. I don't know how, but just something got messed up in the mastering of that one. So, did they... Oh, wait a second. That was... and also this version, the 95 version. It's the same as the previous one. Looks like this, looks like this, looks like this. And it's not a good version. It suffers from the same mastering as the previous version. So in 2012, on the Zappa label, through UME, the best version available. This was remastered by Doug Sachs. And the disc looks something like this. Not something like this, exactly like this. And of course, same picture of Frank again. So, best digital version right there of You Are What You Is. Now we get into yet another gray area with 2 albums. Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch, and also The Man from Utopia. What's this? 2 original albums on 1 CD? Yes, it's another one of those unauthorized EMI titles. 2 albums on 1 CD. Now, this is something for completists. It's got both albums on 1 CD. This version of the album on this particular release is the original mix of The Man from Utopia. This is the only CD which you can find the original mix of this album. Okay? This copy of Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch is not bad at all. But it came out without Frank's permission, so it was quickly deleted. And When Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch came out in the US for real, it came out actually via Barking Pumpkin Records, and the disc looked like that. Had a picture of Frank and Moon on the inside because Valley Girl was on that, and then another picture of Frank and Moon on the outside. When it came out on Ryko in '95, the disc looked like that, and once again had pretty much the same pictures on it. See? Moon, Frank, looks good. Now, this version is the exact same master that is used on the new version. So pretty much all digital versions of Ship Arriving Too Late to Save a Drowning Witch are the same. But the other album that was part of that old twofer, The Man from Utopia, is a little bit different. When it came out in the US officially, it came out on the Barking Pumpkin label, and the CD looked like that. The entire album was remixed, and an extra song was added called Luigi and the Wise Guys. This whole album has so much bass on it, it will knock your subwoofer apart. So beware of that. When it came out on Ryko disc in '95, it was the exact same mix. And this is the way it stands. The Man from Utopia still has a digital remix from Frank, and if you want the digital remix, this is available. I don't like it as much. It's just a little bit different, and some of the songs have a few seconds more material in them. So the only way to get the original is with that unauthorized EMI one I showed you before. Okay, now I got Baby Snake's soundtrack to the movie. Originally came out on Barking Pumpkin with a digital remix and ads for Honker Home Video inside. And then it was re-released on Ryko disc in 1995 with the same master, but a slightly different disc and slightly different cover. And this is also the same version that is available now on Zappa Records via Universal Music Enterprises. Strange thing, on Frank's birthday this past year, 2012, on December 21st, Barking Pumpkin, or let's just say Zappa Records, offered the entire soundtrack of the entire movie, 2 hours and 44 minutes, as a one big audio album for $30. For heaven's sake, you can go buy the DVD for less than that. So that didn't make any sense whatsoever. Alright, let's get serious now. London Symphony Orchestra. This is volume 1, same as the album that came out on Ryko disc very early on in the Ryko era. It's just got the 5 cuts, one of which you're hearing an old version right now. In the background you're hearing Bogus Pomp, the Orchestral Favorites version. But this is the version with the London Symphony Orchestra right here. Now, this is out of print, and so is this version right here, more or less, because this was re-released on Ryko, but it's volumes 1 and 2 instead of just the volume 1, or no designation whatsoever. Same picture of Frank on the back, only there's 2 CDs. 7 tracks on the first, 4 tracks on the second. And 2 CDs, they look like that. This is the same as the version that's out on Zappa Records through Universal right now. So if you want it, it's the same version. All digital versions are pretty much identical. They have not been remastered. This CD here, Boulez Conducts Zappa, The Perfect Stranger, was the first CD that ever had official Frank Zappa music on it. And it came out originally on the Angel label via EMI. It had the ensemble in Contemporarian with Pierre Boulez conducting, and also the Barking Pumpkin Digital Gratification Consort, which was basically Frank on the synclavier. And that went out of print and was replaced by the Barking Pumpkin version a few years later. Looks like that. Big liner notes by Frank. That photo was on the back. And then in 1995, this version came out on Ryko disc. with that photo, that inside, and that back. This is exactly the same master as the version that is available right now on Zappa Records and Universal. Oh, we only got 2 titles left, folks. Them or Us, the very first completely recorded digital Frank Zappa rock album. This is the version that came out first on Rykodisc, an early digital production of Frank's. And then when it was re-released on Ryko again in '95, it had pretty much the same master on it. However, strangely enough, that early digital recording was remastered in 2012 with the Zappa Records version. And that disc looks like this. And yes, believe it or not, it does sound a bit better, a little bit more punchy. This is recommended. And this is probably the last of the titles that was actually remastered from its original source, and the only digitally recorded album to be remastered from its original source. And then there's Thingfish, a interesting album, 3-record set, 2 CD set, originally put out on Rykodisc. Oh, wait a second, that's not the original version. This is the original release. And it's got libretto and everything else in it. And then it was re-released in '95. And pretty much all versions are the same, except a song called He's So Gay on here. And the version that's on the most recent release, Zappa Records through Universal, it's got Johnny Guitar Watson rapping through the whole thing. Very unusual. As far as I can tell, it was not the original CD master, it was the master that was used for the cassette version of that. So that's what was done for that. Alright. That is it for this version, or this particular Frank Zappa re-release campaign. Coming up next is part 4 of 5. And, oh, look at this. The record has finished.